On today's episode of Big Time, the podcast, brought to you by the Landscape Supply Center. As always, our boys out there, the Russos in Herman, Maine. On today's podcast, we're joined by an absolute legend. Cue the legend alert on Big Time. We got Fort Kent's Neile Joler Nelson on Big Time, the podcast, right now. Let's go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the podcast we call Big Time. Big Time, the podcast. Got a big time episode of Big Time today. An absolute icon and legend, Fort Kent, Maine native, now a Southern Maine resident, but we got Neile Joler Nelson on today's episode of Big Time. Neile, how are you?
I'm doing great, Tom. Thanks for having me.
I think the thing I'm most excited about is that Neile is actually a huge fan of this show. I mean, you've told me that before. You've listened,
I am. I love the show.
And you've been a fan since pretty much since day one, I'm thinking, right? I mean, you were there season one.
Listening. Oh, yeah. I was right out of the gate.
That's what I like to hear. That's what we like to hear right there. So I've been trying to get Neile on for a little while. Just schedules weren't matching up, but we got Neile on here for season 4. So, as I mentioned, Fort Kent native, right? Born and raised, I'm guessing, in Fort Kent.
Born and raised. Yep. 1973, Tom.
1973. So graduating class of what?
91.
91. Okay, so this is going to be a good era. I don't think we have had anyone from this era, so we're going to learn a bunch of new stuff today.
All right, I hope so.
So let's go back to the beginning. So, like I said, we haven't had anyone from that era. Not calling you old or anything like that. I'm just saying we haven't spoke to anyone yet. So I'm curious as to what the athletic scene was like growing up when you were super young. So I grew up with the rec department. You may have been working at the rec department when I was coming through.
Yeah.
What did you have as a kid?
Well, I mean, I actually grew up, I only moved into Fort Kent in 5th grade. I actually grew up off of Slybrook Road, right on the point there in Eagle Lake. So I attended Wallagrass Elementary School. So to be honest, we really weren't allowed to play any sports at school until I want to say it was 4th or 5th grade when we were actually able to start playing sports. So, our sports consisted of really just outside activities. And then I think it was 4th or 5th grade I started coming to rec in the town. When we moved to Fort Kent, that's when I started attending the rec department stuff.
Anything exciting going on Slybrook Road back in the day? I know we have the Snowmobile Club nowadays, but what was there back then?
Well, we lived right near Clover Hill Lodge, which was the campground, and now it's called something else. I can't remember what it's called, but there's still a campground there, but we were kind of, we lived right on the other side of that. So, our summers consisted of really being on the lake. I had a really large extended family with a lot of cousins, as everybody else does up there. But, so our summer times and winter really existed with family over all the time. A lot of cousin activity.
Yeah, so no shortage of activities going on then as a kid.
No, always something to do. I mean, we weren't from the generation of cell phones, so we were kicked out of the house very early in the morning, had to make our own fun, had to figure our own things out without adults interfering. And I can't say I was ever really bored as a kid.
So you mentioned you kind of went to Wallagrass. That was your first school you went to.
Yeah.
Who were some of the kids you came up with at that very young age that kind of stuck with you all through high school? Were there any teammates you had later on down the road that you grew up all the way through? Or?
Oh, sure. Yeah. The Desjardins girls, Joanne and Jessie Desjardins, were two really, really dear friends of mine. We played 3 sports together growing up. Their parents are Jim and Elaine. Jim worked in the woods, operated a trucking company. But yeah, we played a lot with them, and they had 6 kids in their family. So 3 girls, 3 boys. So I kind of was an honorary member of their family. Sherry Stottig was another girl from Wallagrass. Michelle Pelletier. Now you bring me back. A lot of the Parodies were there. Wallagrass was a happening place back then.
It was. And since you went to Wallagrass, was Legs the principal at all while you were there? Because I know we had a stint as the principal out.
Yeah, I think he was. I think Legs was there maybe when I was in kindergarten and 1st grade, perhaps, and then Vi Daigle took over at that point. So I had Mrs. Daigle primarily, but I do remember Legs being Mr. Labby at the. God, I want to say it was kindergarten.
What are we talking about for student enrollment at that time? I mean, I'm guessing Wallagrass was probably a lot more bigger back then than it is now. So
Yeah, I mean, it really was. I mean, I would say there were probably, over 100 students for sure, maybe about between 100, 150 school wide. I mean, it was K through 6, and I would say you'd have 20 to 25 in each grade. It was definitely a lot more, there were a lot more kids there than there are now, for sure.
absolutely, yeah. So when did sports come into the picture? You mentioned around fourth and fifth grade was the time you could start playing
Yeah,
Fort Kent Rec, right?
yeah, started playing Fort Kent Rec, and I think it was fifth or sixth grade where we actually were allowed to play on the school team if they didn't have enough, mall girls. I think we played in fifth grade, softball, and then basketball and soccer too. I can't even remember. I think we played like within the valley. We played Fort Kent, we played St. Francis. Each other, we played each other like 4 times
Yep.
throughout the season.
Yep. Big schedule, huge
Tough,
schedule.
big schedule, big
Yeah.
schedule.
So like this is all new on me that you were a Wallagrass kid because Ethan has had this discussion several times about who the best athlete from Wallagrass is of all time, and your name was never come up because I don't think we knew
No,
you were
no,
from
I can't say,
Wallagrass.
I don't think I really hit my stride. And to be honest, a lot of what we did, I'm saying like all the recess time was the boys kind of dominated the play, and then I would try to insert myself at all times in their games. And you know, it, Title IX was just taking effect when I was growing up, so it was, the girls weren't really involved as much as they probably are now. That's for sure.
So where did your love for sports come from, or when did it start?
I I really don't know. I mean, I just grew up being outside all the time. And from a very young age, I would try to find kids near me to play with. Most of the time, it was boys who wanted to, were interested in playing kickball or were interested in kind of playing wiffle ball or something like that, kick the can. We would just make up games. I think I just always had a ball at my feet or in my hand growing up. There really wasn't another alternative.
Did you naturally gravitate towards one sport or the other, or did you just play everything growing up?
Yeah, I played everything. I mean, you did what was going on at the time.
Right.
So,
So when you were kind of getting to sports, fourth, fifth, sixth grade, were you following high school sports at all at that time? Were you the type of kid to go and watch all the high school games, UMFK games, or were you not really into that growing
no,
up?
I was. I definitely started when I moved into Fort Kent. I think it was the middle of my fifth grade year. I moved into Fort Kent, and I definitely started going to some of the high school games. But really, at the time, we were huge fans of the UMFK basketball teams. I
That
mean,
was the
that's what
golden
I
age, right?
remember.
That was the golden
Oh, the
age.
golden age. I mean, the men's team was so good, and I still have fond memories of walking from my house over to the college gym all the time. I mean, every time they were home, a bunch of us would just go watch their games, and they were good. I mean, they were the real deal.
Who was your favorite player from that era? Because I was the same way. I used to go to all the college games, and I had some favorite players growing up.
I mean, I
Anyone?
had a few. I was a Jeff Pillsbury fan,
Okay,
and then I loved Jim McCluskey's game, Juan Hernandez. But Mark Graham was to me one of the
Mark Graham.
most pure shooters I've ever seen.
Absolutely, that's a name drop right there.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, I love those guys. I loved watching them play.
How about high school? Did you go catch any high school games too, or more of a UMFK fan?
My high school game. I'm trying to think of. I'm trying to think of who even. Not really. I mean, a little bit like the Martin. I remember the Martin guys. I think my love for watching high school sports probably started when I was in middle school. So I
Mhm.
was kind of watching. I'd go to my cousin Steve Perrow's games, and I'd watch a lot of the ski races. Yeah, I went to a lot of the basketball games. Chris Canan, Chris Lozier, those guys. Um, they were soccer. Everybody played three sports back then.
Yeah.
So, I went, but I probably went to more college games in middle school.
You just had another name drop, and
Oh, geez.
something else I didn't know. You and Steve Parrow were cousins.
Yeah, oh, yeah. My mom and his dad are brother and sister.
Wow, Steve's somebody else we've had circle. We want to get on the pod at some point here.
Yeah, he'd be great. I bet he's got some pretty good
I
stories.
bet. I remember him just watching him play pickup with my dad growing up, and just
Oh, he could play.
oh, unbelievable,
But I mean,
unbelievable.
Steve was one of those guys that we'd have parties at the lake, and basically we'd play basketball the whole time. It was, all the Perro boys, Paul and Corey and Steve and Tammy, and we had some really good times.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's talk about middle school athletics here. So you would have gotten some middle school athletics at good old Fort Kent Community, not Fort Kent Community, but Fort Kent Elementary School,
Absolutely.
and three sports stud. I'm guessing. Did you play
Three
just
sport.
play softball as well?
Yeah, I played softball too. Yeah.
Remember any of the coaches? Because
I'm
when
trying
I
to think
went through,
middle
we had
school.
we had legendary coaches. We had Don Murray, who you made a play for in high school. Was he your high
Yeah,
school?
I mean, I have a very good recollection of all my high school coaches, but I'm not going to lie to you. I know, who used to coach at middle school when I was there was Matt Tardy used to coach at middle school, and he actually just passed away. He was a guy from Eagle Lake, and I think he was teaching at the middle school at the time, and he coached. I want to say it was basketball a couple of years.
Louis Morrow had to have been coaching
Louis
with.
Morrow definitely coached me. I had Louis Morrow, and I want to say Phil Bouchard did some coaching too.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah, we had some legends. Yeah, we had some good times.
Ah, no, I love middle school basketball. Like, and the thing about us, because like everywhere's else, everyone gets to travel. Like all the other Valley team, or yeah, the Valley teams get to travel and play other teams. But like us traveling was going to St. Francis, and like that was a road trip right there for
It
us.
was a road trip, and we'd always stop at that store on the way home. And I cannot remember the name for the life of me, but I do remember stopping at the store on the way home, and that
Yeah,
was a good time.
that was always the highlight of the trip right there. It was
Yep,
the stop at the
totally.
gas station.
Yeah, I mean, Tom, to be honest, I don't remember a ton about middle school sport. I do remember one of my first seventh grade basketball games. I remember getting the ball and dribbling so proudly, really quickly down the court and scoring my first layup. And then everybody was laughing, and I realized that I went and scored in the wrong hoop. That was one of my earliest recollections of middle school basketball. So it's a little traumatizing
It
when I
went
think
in
about
though. At least it
it.
went
Yeah, I
in,
went
right?
in. Yeah, yeah, 1 for 1.
So you mentioned Title IX just kind of kicking off like when you were growing up. So
Yeah.
as a kid, especially that time frame, were there camps and stuff you could go to, or was that not really a thing? Was that not really available?
Yeah,
Soccer
there
camps,
certainly
basketball
were
camps.
not. There were no camps from, at least to my recollection, until you got to high school
Yeah,
for girls. And really, the only one around that kind of anybody in the county went to was the one at the time. It was NMVTI, Northern Maine Vocational Technical Institute. Now it's NMMC, I believe.
yeah.
So yeah, they had a basketball camp, and I went a couple of years. Bill Cassavant used to run it for many years. He ran it, and yeah, there weren't a ton of opportunities like there are now, but there were opportunities, and there were just girls teams, and the girls programs did exist. So I feel fortunate that I didn't grow up 10 years prior to that, where I don't think there. I think there were even fewer opportunities then. So I
Right.
think I kind of came in at the right time where female athletics were kind of busting through the seams. Title IX was now in place, and I think that, I think the stronghold on female athletics was starting to really come into effect.
Were you the type in the summer times where you kind of worked at your game, or were you just looking to play, or maybe
No,
both?
yeah, no, that's all I did, to be honest with you. I mean, we lived right near the college, and I just, I didn't sit idle for very long, and I would I remember going to that college kickboard and just, I mean, I would practice soccer, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours a day, and then I'd go in the gym and I'd work on my game. And yeah, I was always kind of practicing, and I didn't mind practicing alone. Ideally, I wanted people to play with, but that wasn't always easy to find.
Yeah,
Um,
were you pretty much a loner in terms of like any other
yeah,
girlfriends that were into sports too, like you, or were you pretty much the only one and stuck
I
playing
mean,
by
they were
yourself a lot?
into sports, but I don't know if they liked it to the level that I was a little bit obsessive, I guess I would say. I wasn't okay just sitting around doing nothing. I was always trying to work at something. I mean, I remember running around the mills dribbling a basketball, for God's sake. Things like that I laugh at, and I'm like, people must have thought I was just an absolute knucklehead. But yeah, I mean, I just didn't. I always wanted to try to get better.
Yeah.
I wasn't very complacent at all.
You were you a fan of the pro game at all too, growing up?
Of the program?
No, pro games like the Celtics, Red
Oh,
Sox.
oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yes,
So you
yes.
came up with a good time. You grew up at the right time for
Oh
Celtics
yeah.
basketball, at
Oh
least.
yeah. I mean, and to me, it's not even a comparison anymore. I mean, I just don't think that the game of basketball at the pro levels anywhere near where it was in terms of a team oriented concept, and just the players. And I think you have a lot of individual success now and a lot of talent, but the game of basketball, it was peaking in the late 80s, I think.
And I'm guessing you were a Larry Bird fan, or did you like
I am
someone
a
else on the team?
huge, no, I'm a huge Larry Bird fan.
Okay, can't
Yeah.
go wrong there. It's a solid
No, can't
choice.
go wrong there. I'm a Celtics girl, always will be.
So were you following, not following, but like growing up around that time frame too in middle school? I don't even know if what kind of success the high school teams had at that point, but were you going to tournament games? Like, did you go to the auditorium as a kid and get a taste of it real young or anything like that?
Yeah, we went a couple of times. I mean, I don't remember a ton before I started playing at the high school. I remember going to Bangor a couple of times and watching, I think the boys basketball team was in the tournament. And I remember my mom took us on a little break, a little February vacation down to the Bangor Mall, and we did go to watch a game. And they lost, but I don't remember, growing up really kind of doing that. I think my mom became a fan when I started playing. I mean, I don't think she was a lifetime lover of athletics and wasn't really, going to a bunch of games. So it's not like I grew up in that kind of a house where, but once I started playing, she followed.
Well, we're gonna get to high school here in a second, but I want to kind of close out that first phase of your life
Yeah,
here. Just give me a random experience or just something that just comes to mind when you think middle school.
yeah,
Doesn't have to be sports, but just do you have anything that comes to mind like a story, a
yeah.
moment, maybe a moment at a school dance or something that one of your teachers said, something like that.
No, you know what I remember, Tom, the most is, when I did find people to play with, to be honest, it was usually my younger stepbrother, Lucas, his friend, Tyler Berthium, and I hung out a lot with Lon and Aaron Berthium. So I was really kind of messing around and playing with these 4 or 5 boys all the time. And we'd always go play football or basketball at the college. And at the time, you could just kind of walk into the gym and play. You didn't need parental consent and you didn't need to pay money, and they would just open the doors and let us in. But I remember fighting very often with Lon over who was going to be quarterback, because we'd play 3-on-3 two-hand touch, and we'd just play. We'd put our old shoes on the corners to make sure we had a field gridded out, and we would just fight over who was going to be quarterback. So those are some of my best memories growing up. Was just doing things like that.
You could tell us real quick who had the better arm between you or
I mean,
Lon.
I'm sure Lon would tell a different story, but I think I could. Lon was always looking to rush it and score himself, and I was, a little more of a distributor.
There you go. I'll take your word for it. I believe you. I'll take your word over Lon's. All right, so let's get to high school here. So freshman year would have been what, 1987?
Yep, 87.
And what kind of teams were you coming into? I mean, at that point, had the girls' team really had any success? I mean, there's only
Yeah,
one name I can think of before you, Stephanie Karen. I think maybe 1,000 point score. I think her name's up there in the banner in the gym.
yeah, but see, Steph was actually. I did grow up watching Steph. Steph was older, so I never got a chance to play with her.
Hmm.
But yeah, she was great. Marie Baresi was there, also Linda Johnson. I mean, there was some very good female players, but I didn't play with them. They were probably, they were in that. I don't want to age them, but they were a little older than I was.
Okay.
So when I came in, I guess soccer started freshman year. Teams were okay. I mean, I think they were middle of the pack year after year. Would eventually, some years qualify, go in eighth or ninth seed for playoffs. And I think that was kind of consistent across the board. I think Fort Kent's always kind of been competitive in that sense, but I don't think they had gotten to the success levels, certainly where they are now. But I think, starting in the late 80s, early 90s, I think they were headed in that trend.
Who was the soccer coach for the girls when you came in?
When I came in freshman year, it was Pat Vazin.
Pat was in. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Pat was our coach. I think I had Mr. Vazin all 4 years. I'm trying to think here. Oh, God, I know that's awful, but yeah. And freshman year, we lost in the quarterfinal. You want to hear this story? This is a good one. So freshman year, we actually had a pretty good season, and soccer, we lost in the quarterfinal to Bucksport. We were the sixth seed. I think they were the third seed, and we lost 3-1. And they had a boy on their team.
On the
It
girls'
was
team?
on the girls' team. His name was Romeo, and they did not have enough kids to field a boys' soccer team that year, so they allowed this kid to play on the girls' team. And he had a goal and an assist, and we lost 3-1.
Well, that doesn't seem fair.
It doesn't seem fair. I know. I never quite understood it, but it wasn't one of those things. We just showed up and there's a guy on the team. So, I
Okay.
mean, that stuff wouldn't happen today, but
No,
whatever.
that wouldn't happen today. So we'll kind of run through your high school career. We'll go sport by sport. So we'll just run
Okay.
through soccer and we'll come back to the other ones. So
All right.
you mentioned making it to the playoffs your freshman year. Did you come in and get playing time right away, or did you have to kind of
Yeah.
earn your spot?
No, I started, I think, my freshman year at center mid. Yeah, I came in right away and had a really great group of seniors um, who were kind of very accepting. You're a freshman coming in and the team's established, and as a girl, even worse, you hope you're going to get along with your teammates and that they're going to kind of be okay with you there. And I just had really great people, just really nice girls, really great seniors, kind of showing me the ropes and looking after me and all that stuff. So, yeah, we actually had a pretty good team.
Physical stature. Were you tiny as a freshman?
I mean, I haven't changed much in 30 years. I was probably the same size I am now, about 5'5", and I wouldn't say, I think I was, I wasn't tiny, but I could hold my own.
Yeah.
You know.
How would you describe your playing style? Were you you had to be, you were probably physical. If you grew up playing with boys, then I'm guessing
Yeah, I
that
was
transferred
physical.
over.
I was physical. I think I had pretty good stamina. And I think the thing that I did, I think okay was I was famous for winning the ball in the air. And at the time, this is before the era of concussions, so I think that was probably my biggest role. But I also feel like I was a distributor. I mean, I played center mid. My role was to kind of, anchor the offense, control the middle of the field, win balls in the air, and try to hit my teammates in the front to score some goals. So I tried to do that.
So
Played on a
this was the late '80s, and soccer has evolved a little bit since
Oh
then.
God,
So
yeah.
especially the playing style.
Yeah.
So nowadays a little bit more tactical, or I think teams try to play more tactical.
Oh, totally.
Let's describe the playing style in the late '80s at Fort Kent. How'd you guys play?
Well, let's just say it was a big adjustment for me playing in high school and then playing in college. I mean, the philosophy back then was to boot the ball and run,
Yeah.
and hope your front line was faster than the defenders on the other team. That wasn't necessarily my style, but it was certainly the style that girls soccer was at the time. That's just what people did. They kicked it, they ran, and the girl with the heaviest foot was one of the better ones on the team. So.
Yeah. I just had this conversation. I just had a guy named Andy Martin from Van Buren on a couple weeks ago, and I think
Yeah.
they still play that style. So I had him explain it to me, and yeah, so I think it is pretty well, not funny, but it's just crazy to see how much the game has changed,
Yeah,
especially
the game's gotten so much more fun to watch, I
yeah,
think.
a little bit more beautiful to watch now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So sophomore year, any differences, or were you guys pretty much middle of the pack all the time throughout your
Yeah,
time in
I
high
mean, we
school?
made, you know, we made the playoffs. I think we made the playoffs each year. Yeah, I can't remember. I don't think we won a playoff game. Maybe my senior year. Actually, my senior year, I think we did win a playoff game against Rockland, and made it to the semis and then lost. But we were good. I mean, we'd have 10 or 11 wins a season. We'd lose 5 or 6 games. We'd always try to. We'd play competitively with the Presque Isles and the Holtons and the Caribous of the world. Because back then, Presque Isle and Caribou were Class A.
Yeah.
So I mean, we'd hold our own. We wouldn't get our rear ends handed to us. But then, come playoff time, we'd probably be on the road for a 4 or 5 hour ride, and it was a little too much. And those teams were probably playing a little more around the clock than we were, and we were often. It wasn't a matter of a lack of heart. It was more we just weren't as talented. But we had some solid teams for sure.
Describe to me the atmosphere at Fort Kent Community High School in the late '80s at a soccer game. This would have been before the lights,
Yeah.
no night games, so it was all afternoon games.
Yep.
And I don't know if they took care of the field as well as most schools do now.
Oh no, I mean it wasn't. It was okay for the time. I'll tell you what, Tom. I mean, the soccer fields were packed. The basketball gyms were packed. I mean, late 80s, early 90s. I think that's when the community really started to embrace youth kids in athletics a
Yeah.
lot more than kind of wanting them to go to work all the time. And really, I think the following really started to pick up at that time. I mean, there were some big crowds at these games, whether it was girls' games or boys' games. I mean, there was a supportive community there all the time. Younger kids were there, the older generations were there. I think it was a pretty special time growing up there.
So, usually for people that even come in and get playing time as a freshman and sophomore, it doesn't really become your team until junior and senior year. What were those last couple of years like for you? I mean, I'm guessing it was your team at that point, a little bit more responsibility. Everyone was looking towards you.
Yeah.
How was that different from your first couple of years on the
Yeah,
soccer
I mean,
field?
I guess I felt more comfortable in that respect than trying to do those things as a freshman or sophomore. But I feel like I was never really a person when I was playing. I wasn't really one to boss my teammates around. I didn't do things kind of that way. I guess I tried to do it on the field and tried to be a leader by example. And I guess I just tried to work harder than everybody else around. So you know what I mean? And I think when you have people on the field that do that, I don't think it matters how old they are, that you're going to gain some respect. And you're going to be a good teammate. And I think people like that. I don't think I was a jerk to play with. I think I was tried to be unselfish, but I also wanted to win. So yeah, I definitely took on more of a leadership role my junior and senior year for sure. But I played with some really good kids. I mean, we had some good teams.
Who were some of the kids that came up around the same time as you that were on your teams that were also very good?
Yeah, I mean the Desjardins girls, they were good athletes. Jesse and Joanne Desjardins, Joanne O'Leary now. Oh, sorry, got something in my throat. Benita Martin played soccer and basketball. She was a really good athlete. Christine Stassi played soccer. She was a really good player. Kristen Vazin, Kathy Pooler. Um, God, I mean, we had some really good teams.
Those some
I
of
was
those
really
names are
lucky.
ringing a bell. Those do sound familiar, but
I mean, these are a lot. These are long before your
yeah,
time,
that's
but
the thing. A little bit before
you
my
know,
time, but they sound
it,
familiar.
and back then, I mean, when we all played three sports together, it's not like the Vazin girls were really good. My cousin Paula played; she was pretty good. Um, but we all played soccer, we all played softball, we all played basketball together.
Right.
So you have moments where you probably drive each other crazy, but I think at the end of the day, when you play that many games with people, you're willing to kind of lay out for them.
So you mentioned you played some of the bigger schools back then,
Yeah.
Presque Isle and
Oh yeah.
Caribou Class A, and then
Yeah.
a moral victory would be just to come out of there with it being a close score. Who were some of the teams you guys just absolutely battled during your time? Like, was it a rivalry with Madawaska and Van Buren
Oh,
back then, or
Madawaska was and Van Buren was really good, and actually Wisdom was pretty good back then. They had a girl named Julie Roy who was one hell of a player, and Madawaska had the Gagnon girl. God, there were some very, very good athletes in the Valley, I thought, and a lot of them I actually went on to play against in college. So yeah, we battled with Madawaska on every sport. We battled with Presque Isle and Caribou. And I would say when I was in high school, our biggest rival was Holton. I'm not sure if that's still the case in the regular season, but we just hated Holton and wanted to just cream Holton and everything.
what was the biggest difference you saw in yourself from freshman year to sophomore or to senior year? Maybe how did you improve? What was the biggest improvement as a player during that time frame?
Yeah, I mean, as a player, I guess I just felt like I could control the game from the midfield a little more. I was able to kind of build my foot skills through the course of those 4 years and really put some time in at the game. And I also got a little more, I don't want to say selfish, but I was okay scoring. I guess my first few years, I was probably more comfortable kind of, you know, getting the ball up the field and finding somebody so they could score, but just a little more comfortable kind of finding people at the right time and distributing the ball a little better and just winning the ball in the air. I mean, that was big back then. You won the ball in the air with a header as often as possible. Um, I would say that's one part of the game that's certainly digressed. I just don't think it's really important anymore. I think it's more they want to control the ball at the feet more. And but the philosophy 30 years ago is you got to win the ball in the air with your head.
Here's a great question for you. During that time frame, How many times did Legs Labby ask you for a photo
Oh
for the
my
St.
God,
John
I
Valley
love
Times?
him. Let me tell you something. It's funny, Tom, when I knew I was doing this, I'm going through right now and I dug out my old high school scrapbooks, okay, which are impeccable. I
Yeah.
mean, my mother kept every article, but if you could say Labby photo, Don Arnold text,
Yeah.
Labby photo, Don Arnold text. I mean, your grandfather, first of all, that's my favorite podcast that you've done, by the way.
The one with legs?
Oh, by far.
Yeah.
All right, the best ever. But your grandfather treated me like a queen in high school. And I will forever be grateful to him because I owe every ounce of self confidence to that man. I'm serious. He was great. He came to everything, but the St. John Valley Times was such a great paper because they really focused on kids in the valley.
Oh, yeah.
They really did. And I don't know if it's still like that or not, but I'll tell you what, we all grew up thinking getting our name and picture in the paper was the biggest deal. And that's tremendous. I mean,
It's true.
it's awesome. It's amazing.
I remember they used to have it in the library, so every Wednesday they get a copy in the library, and they'll go straight there to see if I had a picture in there or a write up or
Oh,
anything. That was huge back then.
it is huge. It's
Yeah,
awesome. I just there was such a focus on kids
yeah,
back then.
absolutely.
Really.
Shout out
Yeah.
to Legs, my man Legs. And the thing
Shout
is too,
out to
like,
Legs.
yeah, the thing I got a
Hey,
kick out of.
Legs is big time.
He's as big time as they get, and the thing that gets me about Legs is that every time I do one of these, people are like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to remember things. And
Oh,
then I
he's
had Legs
unbelievable.
on, who's in his late 80s, and he's recalling in-game scenarios from his state championship game back in the
Yeah.
1940s. He's unbelievable.
I mean, he's amazing. Hey, Tom, a couple years, I think it was last year. I was opening my mail one day, and I kid you not, there's an envelope in there, and the return address says Legs Labby, Port Kent, Maine.
Yeah.
And I thought, what in the world is Legs doing sending me a letter? So in it were a couple of old pictures that he had taken, and he must have been cleaning out some drawers at his house, and he found them. But darn it, didn't he send me a nice letter with these original pictures from the St. John Valley Times days?
Yeah, he still does it for me. Like I got something for my birthday. He had like an old newspaper clipping. He
Ah,
sent it for
he's
my birthday.
awesome.
So yeah, yeah,
Very sweet.
love that guy.
Yeah, me too.
Let's transition to the hardwood here. So
All
you
right.
mentioned earlier you did play for Don Murray. Was he your head coach the whole time?
No, he wasn't. When I came in on the scene as a freshman, and my varsity coach that year was Terry Carpenter.
He was the soccer coach too, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think he was a boys soccer coach and girls basketball coach.
I'm actually in the process right now of lining up Terry Carpenter for the podcast.
Ah, that's awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah,
Well, last I knew, I mean, I used to see him out at Scarborough Downs, heading out when I'd bet on the Derby and the Preakness, but he hasn't worked there in years.
yeah,
But yeah, I hope he's doing well. He was great.
working on that. So you came in as a freshman. Guessing you got
Yep,
playing time. Were you? What were
yep,
you?
I
Point
got
guard,
playing
two
time.
guard?
I was a two guard. I was a shooting guard. I played some point, but primarily, I mean, I evolved into a shooting guard, but I do think I played some point.
Describe your playing style for those that have never seen you play before.
Um, it's hard to separate what I ended up with what I ended up being and what I began. I guess I would say as a freshman, I was kind of a kid who, if I was open, I was going to shoot it, and if somebody else was open and they had a better shot, I was going to give it to them.
So you
Um,
played the right way.
yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't think anybody that ever played with me would say I was a selfish player. I think, I like to score, I like to shoot, but if somebody had a better more high percentage shot, I was certainly going to give them the ball.
And I'm
I
also
like to,
guess yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm guessing because the fact that you played against boys growing up, that once you got to high school there was no fear, no nothing. You just
Yeah,
played
it
your
was
game.
okay. Yeah, I just played my game. Again, I had welcoming teammates. I mean, that's a thing that doesn't happen now as much. I feel like, I don't think anybody was threatened by younger kids coming in. I feel like I had a great supportive group of of upperclassmen. I just played with really good people. But our freshman year, we made the tournament, went to Bangor, and we lost by three, I think, to Orono. No, it was more than three. Actually, it was probably like 23. We lost that year. We lost. We got cleaned out by Orono. They were really good.
Was that the first time the girls team had been down there?
It might have been. It might have been in a while. I can't remember what happened the year before I got there. But Benita Martin was a really good player when I was there as a freshman. I think she was a senior when I was a freshman,
Yeah.
uh, and she was pretty good.
Describe to me your first auditorium experience as a ball player. That's
Oh my God, fascinating. I mean, I was overwhelmed by it. It's just such a big place, and the thing is, when you go to visiting team gyms, they're very welcoming, and they let you walk around, and they show you to your locker room, and they're engaging you. But in the auditorium, it was kind of all business, and this was my first experience. No, you can't go on the floor, you can't go in the locker room until this time. You have to stand here. So it definitely felt like a very sterile environment,
yeah.
but boy, once you got in there and you were on that floor, it was a pretty amazing place. Certainly the mecca of Maine high school basketball, without
Absolutely.
question.
The
Yeah.
new place, the Cross Insurance Center, is nice. It's a great venue, but it's not the
Oh, totally.
auditorium. Not the
No, it's
auditorium.
not the auditorium. It'll never be the auditorium.
So you got a taste of success right off the bat. Your
Yeah.
freshman year got to Bangor. So how did things kind of go from there? Were you guys kind of like middle of the pack and just constantly in the tournament hunt, or did you guys
Yeah.
ever make a deep run? Or
I mean, for my first 3 years, my second year, we had a different coach. Terry was only there my first year, and then he left, he retired. And then I had Cliff Chassis my sophomore year, and we actually had a really good team. Um, and we lost to Holt. No, did we lose to Holton? I'm trying to. No, we actually won that year. We won the quarterfinal game against Orono. We were the 3 seed, and then we lost to Holton in the semis. Junior year, we had Don Murray, and we lost in the quarterfinals. And then senior year, we actually made a little bit of a run. We won in triple overtime, the
oh,
quarterfinal game. Yep, probably the most exciting. Well, one of the most exciting games I ever played in, I think, was that senior year quarterfinal game against Madinock Academy.
triple overtime, was it high scoring or?
Yeah, 78-75. We won
Wow.
by 3. Yeah, and that was a heck of a game. And I remember Madinock Academy had a girl on their team. Her name was Kim Bennett. She was 6'3", 6'3" or 6'4", and we had never seen a girl that tall. So we're going down there, and I think our tallest girl was Kendra Marquis, and she was 5'10", at best 5'10",
Yeah.
and yeah, and we beat them in triple overtime. And then the semifinal game, we played the Holton Shire Towners, and we were down 5 with a minute left, and we came back and tied the game with 4 seconds to go. And Holton took the ball out of bounds and got it to half court, called a timeout. And we're in the timeout, and Don Murray's saying, "Okay, guys, we've just got to defend the 3-point shot. They're going to they got to chuck it up. They don't have time to get to the rim, so we've got to get our hand up in people's faces and make sure we contest the shot." Well, this girl takes it from out of bounds, catches it on the sideline, and throws a prayer up, and sinks it at the last second.
Heartbreak right there.
Very heartbreaking. Clearly, I haven't gotten past it. Yeah, so we
uh,
lost in the semis on that note.
that's tough. At least you got a win though. And
Yeah,
at least you
yeah,
got one win down there,
absolutely.
and at least you got to play them more than once, more than one year. So
Yeah, yeah, it was fun.
we talked about how the style of play on the soccer field has changed, over the course of 30 years.
Yeah.
What was girls' high school basketball in Northern Maine like during that time frame?
As I look back on it now, it was a lot of zone defenses. I don't, it was really, I think the kids with the best athletes won. The teams with the best athletes usually ended up winning. It wasn't like there were a lot of fine-tuned basketball players out there that were playing year-round like there are now. Um, you weren't running through skills and drills clinics all summer. You weren't going to 4 states to play. You were just kind of playing in season. So the style of basketball was probably kind of ugly at times when I think back on it now. Um, but it was still okay. It was still pretty good. I feel like we were a good team. But primarily in the Valley, it was zone defense.
You
Yeah.
mentioned as a freshman, you were shot when you were open, pass an open teammate.
Yeah.
How did you change as a basketball player from freshman year to senior year? What was the biggest thing that evolved the most maybe during that time frame?
Yeah, I was probably just more comfortable having the ball in my hand and kind of directing traffic a little bit more. But, I hope when I look back on my basketball career, Tom, I don't know if I ever really changed in terms of how I wanted to play the game. I mean, I did really always value a higher percentage shot. I grew up watching the Celtics move the ball, and I'm still trying to coach like that in a generation that doesn't want to be coached like
Right.
that. I like moving the basketball. I like pushing the ball. I like running the break. I would much rather pass to somebody on the break than take a contested shot. So in that regard, if I'm open, I'll shoot. If somebody's more open, I'll definitely find them the ball. Um, and that never changed much, even in college. I can chuck it. Don't get me wrong, but um, I definitely like to move the basketball.
Absolutely. We kind of described what a home soccer game was like during that time frame. What was the gym like on a
The gym
Friday
was
night?
awesome.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
the
guessing you guys
gym
had
was packed.
cheerleaders, had a band.
Oh my God, we had so much fun. We had a great band. We had a great pep band, and they traveled, and they came to the auditorium. We had cheerleaders. The gym was packed. I mean, Legs had his seat across the gym. Doc Johnson had his seat. Doc Albert had his seat. They were just staples at every game, and they were there religiously. But I tell you, back then, county basketball was fun. I think it probably still is. I haven't been able to catch a lot of games, obviously, in the past years, but um, the places were packed, and the fans were supportive, and the basketball was pretty good.
A lot of
You
good
know,
programs too, like Holton,
yeah,
Caribou, Presque Isle.
absolutely.
A lot of
And
great girls
oh,
programs.
yeah, we grew up. I mean, I feel very grateful to have grown up when I did, where I did.
Right. Came through at the right time.
I came through the right time for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're gonna get to softball, and then we're gonna circle back and do a quick rapid fire. Take your pick, and we'll kind of hit on
Okay.
a couple more things. But we'll go through softball. So did you kind of just play softball as something to do, or did you really enjoy softball as well?
No, I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I mean, I ended up being an all-state third baseman in softball.
All
So
state? Were you all state in any other sports or just
I
softball?
was yeah, no, in all three.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, soccer, basketball, and softball. I think it was 3 years in soccer, two in basketball, and then softball was, I want to say my last 2 years. Yeah, no, I was third baseman, played the hot corner.
So what kind of hitter were you? Were you
Uh, well, hey, I mean, it's not like we were playing against the pitching that the kids nowadays are playing against. So I'm not gonna act like I was this, Ted Williams kind of hitter, but
yeah,
I could hit the ball.
yeah. Yeah, so I'm guessing once again, just like the talent has kind of evolved and the style has kind of
Oh,
evolved. So I'm guessing, yeah,
totally.
the pitching probably wasn't the best. It wasn't the easiest to
No,
hit
I mean,
back then.
no, and I mean, we had, for what at the time we had a good pitcher, but I mean, for what these kids throw now, no, it's not even close.
Right.
I
Uh,
mean, these kids now, I'm not sure I could hit any of them.
so the thing with softball too is sometimes you guys get a late start just because the weather wouldn't cooperate, right? So sometimes
Yeah, we were lucky to be out there in May.
yeah. So spring practice was in the gym,
Yeah,
and then you
or in the
guys
parking lot.
go in the parking lot, and then hopefully get onto the softball field sometime in May if you were
Yeah.
lucky.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely. But we had some pretty good teams. I mean, my last couple of years, we, I think we set a school record my junior year. We actually had like 10 or 11 wins, which was unheard of at the time. And then we ended up losing in a playoff game to Madanaka Academy that year. And senior year, we made the playoffs again. So yeah, we did okay, considering that there was a lot of snow on the ground and we really didn't have much of a field to play on. I think we competed well.
Who was the coach for the softball team?
I had two. I had Lloyd Susie was the coach my first couple of
Yeah,
years, and then Dick Fortin was our coach my last two
Dick
years.
Fortin coached
Yeah.
softball.
Oh yeah, he was great.
What kind of coach was he?
He was a quiet coach. I think he was a practice coach. He
Yeah,
was one of those guys that did a lot of coaching and practice, and come games, he put it in our hands. So he was great to play for. So was Lloyd. They were fun.
good, good.
Yep.
You guys have any? Well, guessing the. I was gonna say, did you guys have any like rivals? Like, were there just some teams that you kind of battled against? But I'm guessing like with softball, like a lot of it was determined by the pitcher, right? So I mean, like,
Oh, totally.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at some articles a while ago, and I remember going to we took a ride down to Katahdin High School. Now they were Class D, and here we are, Class B, and I think it was a preseason scrimmage or a regular season game early on. I can't remember, but here we are going down to we think we're going to go and kick their ass, and we come down. They actually have a really good pitcher. I'm not sure any one of us got a bat on the ball the entire game.
oof.
Yeah,
That
it
could
was a
make for a
rough
long
one.
game right there.
It made for a very long game. Yeah.
How about this? Tell me what was. I mean, obviously you had so many awesome moments on the sporting fields, or yeah, sports fields in high school. Give me something that just stands out from your high school years, not athletic wise, or maybe like it could be
Yeah.
an athletic event you attended, but maybe not played in, or just something from high school that really stands out as something that you look back on fondly.
All right, let me think about this. Um, hmm.
Or was it all sports?
I mean, it was all sport. No, I mean, I have a lot of things I look back on. I'm just trying to think. Um, I had an opportunity. Well, geez, give me a second to think about
All right.
this. Um, I mean, it was a lot of sports, but I certainly, I was involved in the Dirigo All-State things and things like that. I mean, I enjoyed my time at school too. I was involved in a lot of clubs and activities and things like that. And I actually, at the time, I loved working the rec department in the summer when I was in high
Yes.
school. So, the rec department was big, but I think I mean, I started working there when I was my summer of my sophomore year. I was like one of the girls' sports assistants, so I loved that. You know what I remember, Tom, growing up is so here I am, 16 years old, just got a license, right? And I was working with Tina Lizot was the girls' sports director, and I was her assistant. And part of our job in the summer, we would run the basketball camps, the soccer camps, the softball camps, the tennis camps. I mean, any sports that the kids did, we'd basically take them an hour here, an hour there. Well, then we started competing against the other towns, and we didn't have a bus. So Tina would throw five of the kids in her car, and I'd throw five or six in my car, and I'd drive these kids, and they didn't wear seatbelts at the time. And here we are. I'm a 16-year-old kid driving 13-year-olds to Holton to play a softball doubleheader on a hot, sunny afternoon in the summer. I mean, I loved that part of growing up there. The amount of trust that people put into the rec program and the amount of leeway that we had to just have fun with the kids. And we'd take them to play games, and none of the parents came to watch. The parents just left their kids,
Oh
though.
yeah, they just wanted to drop them off. They
They
wanted some
just
time to
wanted to drop
themselves.
them off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, those to me were some of the really good memories that I have of working in the summer and then being on the golf course in Fort Kent. And I loved growing up there, but I really had an affinity to the older generation there
Yeah.
a lot. So
Absolutely.
I loved being a high school kid, going to the golf course and golfing with Louis Morrow or golfing with Sis Sear or some of these older people that just kind of would let me do that. I love that so much. I think that was pretty special.
You nailed it. And those are some of the things I look fondly back on too. Is just rec department, like going doing rec sports in the
Yep.
morning, getting a slush puppy at the little
Oh,
concession stand,
oh my
getting
God, the
some lunch,
best.
coming back, going to the pool for the afternoon. It just
Absolutely.
those are the days.
And then on the way home at 4 o'clock, when the pool would close and the rec was done for the day, and I would take my huffy bike home, I would always stop at Dickie's was Dickie's around when you were
No,
growing
I don't
up?
even know what Dickies
Oh,
is.
okay, you missed out, man. I'm sorry, but you grew up at the wrong time. So Dickie's was a an Airstream trailer, okay, that had been made into like a really old Airstream trailer, and the woman who owned it was Vicky, and her son was Mike, or Dickie rather. Sorry, her husband was Mike, or the other way around. I don't know. But anyway, the place was called Dickie's, and it was like a hamburger and hot dog and ice cream place. So I mean, they had the best milkshakes, best ice cream, best burgers going. So every day after, I would stop and get a, mocha milkshake and a cheeseburger with mustard and relish.
Where was this thing parked at?
Right in front of the hill where the public library is, the
Yeah,
grassy hill right across. So right down there, like right now it's Doc. It was right in front of where Doc's garage was.
I must have just missed that then.
You did. I mean, I have a picture here. Jim Legacy draws a lot of beautiful pictures of like Fort Kent memorabilia, and I'll occasionally buy some on his website.
Yeah.
And I bought it's a picture that he drew of Dickie's. Oh, it's just epic. It's beautiful.
Are you going on record and saying it's better than a cheeseburger and puts in from Rock's Family
I
Diner?
am.
Oh my
It's
god.
the original. I'm going to say it's the. No, I'm a big fan of rocks, but no disrespect intended. But Dickies, I think if you asked any kids growing up in that era, that Dickies was the place to be. And I remember in the summertime, in the evening, when there was a beautiful evening, that hill that near the library, that hill would be covered with people just sitting and having an ice cream,
Oh man,
sitting on the grass. It was the best.
those are the days.
Yep, those were the days, glory days.
Yeah. So for you, your glory days didn't end in high school. You got to continue your athletic career, and you decided
I
to go to
did.
St. Joe's.
Yeah, well, I didn't get into Colby. I had only applied to Colby and got put on a wait list, so I couldn't wait long enough and ended up applying to St. Joe's and went there. And
Did you get recruited by anybody, or you just were
no,
no?
no. I mean, nobody came up to the county to watch us play.
So
Not when I was growing up.
what was the goal? What was the intention? What were you going to school for? What did you major in?
Well, I was majoring in math with the intention of going into actuarial science. Um, I wanted to be an actuary, and I wanted to play soccer at St. Joe's. That was, kind of the sport that I was thought I could play in college, and decided that I wanted to do that. So, I guess I was kind of getting recruited with soccer. I guess it's not like it was an active recruitment process back then, but the coach had reached out, and I ended up going there and trying out, making the team, and having a great experience. And it really wasn't until probably halfway through soccer season my freshman year when I decided to play basketball. Yeah.
So at the time, what was the conference that St. Joe's was in?
So we were in the Maine Athletic Conference,
Okay, yeah,
which really was all the teams in Maine, other than UMaine Orono. I mean, and Bowdoin Bates and Colby, but we usually played them on our schedule, which doesn't always happen now.
yep.
Um, and we were part of the NAIA Division Two. So we played the Maine Athletic Conference, which was an affiliated conference of the NAIA Division Two tournament.
So tell me this: biggest adjustment from Northern Maine high school soccer to soccer at St. Joe's.
Well, it was much more technical, and I think that's when I really started to hit my stride. I mean, everybody on the field knew what they were doing. Everybody was much more technically savvy than before. Now the goal is to control the ball, control the midfield, control the pace of the game. The field's obviously bigger. It was fun. I mean, I loved the adjustment. I loved stepping in and playing at the collegiate level. I thought that was a great time.
Yeah, so I'm guessing that was the first time where you might not have been the best one on the field, or you were just surrounded by players who
Yeah, just surrounded
knew
by
how to play the
good
game.
play. Yep, absolutely.
No disrespect to your
Absolutely.
teammates in high school, but just
Oh, no, no, it
on a
wasn't.
different level.
No, absolutely.
Right.
They were on a different level. And these kids, these were kids that played a lot more than I played growing up. They were playing, at the time they were playing a lot more. I mean, the weather down in southern Maine kind of allowed for more time on the field than it did in northern Maine. So no, these guys were good.
What was the highlight of college soccer for you? Did you guys make any national tournament appearances or conference championships or anything like that?
Yeah, we actually won our conference, I think 3 out of 4 years.
Oh,
Yeah, we had some really good soccer teams, and we made it to the second round of it. We played in the District 5 was our district. So
yep.
we made it to the conference championship once and lost in the second round the other 3 years, but had some good teams.
Now,
Had some great coaches, great players.
now obviously, playing at Fort Kent Community High School, you travel in the county to some of the other teams, go down to Bangor
Yeah.
for a high school tournament. Well, being in college was the first time you actually got to travel, or
Oh my God. Yeah.
a little bit
We were on
different.
those. Yeah, we went everywhere. I mean, we'd go to Vermont regularly. We'd come up to the county and play at Umpy.
Hmm.
UMaine Fort Kent didn't have a women's team, but we'd play at Umpy every other year. Bowdoin Bates, Colby played a lot of games in Maine, a lot in Mass, a lot in Connecticut, Vermont. We were in those vans. And, we drove. I remember, my junior and senior year, I was one of the driving captains. So you basically had a role. If you were captain, you drove the van on the away games. I mean, the amount of responsibility that was placed in a teenager's hands at that time is just absurd to me now.
A little bit different back then.
Oh, my God, it would never happen now.
How about basketball? So you said you didn't really have the intention originally to play basketball while you were there, but you wound up playing that as well.
Yeah, I play. Yeah, it's funny. When I first started, I was very homesick. I mean, being 6 hours away, I had only really been away from home a couple of times, and I thank God I had soccer because I really think if I weren't playing, I probably would have transferred and come home. I missed my family, I missed the county, I missed the people, and it's funny. I remember the dean of students at St. Joseph's College. His name was Dick Bailey, and he was also the softball coach at the time. And he was an older guy, and he and I hit it off, and he knew I was struggling. I was homesick. I had great teammates on the soccer field, thank God, and a lot of their families kind of took me in, and spoiled me. But he said, he talked to the basketball coach, and he said, if you don't get this kid to play basketball this winter, she's going to transfer in January. She's heading home. So Coach McDevitt was there at the time, and he's actually still there now. And he and I sat down. And he said, "Why don't you try out and see how you like it?" And I did, and I was so glad I did. It was such a wonderful experience.
And I was reading a little bit about your bio on St. Joseph's website, and you guys had some team success there as well.
Oh man, we had some good teams. I played with some really talented girls. Yep, we had some good teams. We played in the NAIA Division II tournament. We made it to the national tournament 3 years, and actually won a couple of games my junior year there, which was amazing. The tournament was out in Monmouth, Oregon, at Western Oregon State College. So it was just really, really awesome experiences. I got to travel a lot. I played with two All-American centers that were, 1,000-point scorers. I played with probably 7,000 or 8,000 point scorers through my career. Some really talented girls.
And I know, like today, Maine has a great women's D3 college basketball scene.
Yeah.
Bowdoin Bates, USM,
Yeah.
St. Joe's. What was it like back then?
Back then, I think you would have found, Bowdoin has always been strong.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't as strong then as they are now. St. Joe's, we were good. USM was very good at the time, and Husson was really good. I would say our rivalries for sure were with St. Joe's, Husson, and USM. And UNE had some good teams. But it was fun at the time because the Maine Athletic Conference, we'd have conference banquets, and it was, the entire state, really, all these basketball teams from the entire state. Maine Maritime, UMPI, everybody was in the Maine Athletic Conference.
Except for UMFK.
Except for UMFK,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. But it was, I think it was a special time in women's college basketball in Maine. Now you have so many conferences that consist of out of state and out of, Fort Kent's in a whole other conference.
Yep.
UMPI's in a conference. Maine Maritime's in a conference. Bowdoin Bates and Colby are in their own conference. USM is in the Little East. So I feel like it's much more divided now, and there's not an incentive for the inter games between the main teams. They have to stay in conference. They can only play so many out of conference games. So a little different. Farmington was also in the conference.
Yeah,
They were
that's
good. They had
another
some good
great
teams
school.
too.
Yeah.
Yep,
So like
some good teams.
my only taste of the MAC was, I think UMFK was in it the last year it was in existence, and I never heard of it before that. And so I was only in middle school, but like that was like I used to go to all the games. So like we saw Huston come through, St. Joe's, Thomas, just all these schools that we had never got to see play before, and it just sounded like a great conference. Yeah.
Oh, it was awesome. Yeah, it was awesome. I wish it would have never disbanded. I think it was a kind of a sad era when that happened.
Yeah. Did you wind up playing softball as well?
No, I didn't. I thought about it, but I was burnt out. It was tough. 2 college sports for 4 years was a lot. A lot on my body, a lot on the time, and yeah.
And you really have no break because the seasons overlap, so you jump right in from one to the other. And
yeah, and we were actually overlapping for a couple of weeks, so basketball conditioning started at the end of my soccer season.
Yeah. But college was a great experience, right?
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, I loved it there.
Hall of Famer.
Hall of Famer, yep.
So when were you inducted into their Hall of Fame?
The first year I think it was 2000.
So you were part of the inaugural class.
I was part of the inaugural class. That was pretty special.
That's big time.
Yeah,
That's big time right there.
That's big time.
So we're going to get to one of our first segments here.
Okay.
It's called Just Take Your Pick. I'm just going to do a bunch of rapid fire. It could be from any sport, high school or college. You just tell me what your pick is.
All right.
So, game you look forward to most on the schedule each year?
Basketball, St. Joseph's College, Husson at home in the Chamber of Horrors.
Yeah, can you tell me what the St. Joe's home court? Why is it called the Chamber of Horrors? Real quick.
Oh man. Okay, so it's this little podunk gym that's now a maintenance building on campus. Really small. But I'm going to tell you that there was never a game in there where there was not standing room only. and there were so many people, and it was so loud, and it was so obnoxious for any visiting team. But it was so fun to be a part of the culture there. I cannot put it into words. The place was tremendous.
Chamber of
Best
Horrors.
best venue I've ever played in
All
my
right.
entire life. Yep.
Well, that transitions into my next question. Least
Okay.
favorite place to play? We'll make it a two-part.
Yep.
Least favorite place to play because of the facility.
The UMaine Presque Isle women's soccer field in November.
Okay. I can see that. How about
Yep.
least favorite place to play because of the fans?
Oh, Hassan, by far. They hated us. We had such a hating relationship I can't explain. And when I say hate, I mean full blown hate.
How about the player you looked forward to matching up against each year? Like who's the one player you love to go against?
Julie Roy, soccer, Wisdom High School
Just
against Fort Kent.
just because she was good and it was kind of someone
Yep.
to match up
Just
against?
because she was good, we played the same position. We marked each other the whole game. It was really fun.
How about least favorite player to go up against? Maybe just someone who got in your head, someone who was physical, someone you didn't like.
Is this? Are you going to stall this? I have to. Can I think about
We,
this one
we,
for a
we, can,
second?
we can come back to that one.
Okay, come back to that one. I need to give it some thought.
How about the worst road trip, just like the worst bus ride to go play somewhere?
Oh, Norwich, Vermont, because we always went the same weekend in the winter. I feel like it was Martin Luther King weekend, and every year we went, it snowed like hell, and you'd go through the Kangamangas Highway on the bus in the snow, and I just remember getting car sick every time we went on that trip.
How about a favorite teammate?
Oh God, Tom, honestly, I am friends with every teammate I ever played with. So I don't know if I could pick one.
Okay.
I love them all. Probably, you know what? I'm gonna say one. Kendra Markey.
Okay, good answer. This is the
Yep.
first episode she's been mentioned on.
Oh, that's a shame. She needs to be a big time podcast member by
So
far.
start working that for me. We'll make it
She
happen.
was. Let me tell you, I played with that girl for 3 years in high school, three sports, and 3 years in college, two sports. And she's one of the best athletes I ever played with, and one of the best people I've ever been around.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about maybe just the person who had the biggest effect on your athletic career? Maybe like a role model or mentor.
I mean, I had a lot of them. All of my coaches, for sure. Don Murray, Dick Fort and Lloyd Susie, all of those guys. Dan Sear. But I will tell you that to this day, Mike McDevitt remains my biggest role model.
Okay.
Yep.
And we're gonna come back to that question you didn't have an answer for. The person you just did not like to go up against. Is there anybody out there, or did you just always get the best out of the better out of everyone you went up against?
I'm still gonna think about. Give me a second, okay?
Okay.
I'm gonna say, you know what? I will tell you. Kim Dahl from Holton was somebody that I did not like to play against.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Any reason? Was she really good, or just
No,
talk
she was
trash?
good, but she kind of was the one who I felt like, I don't know. She's the one who hit that shot against us
Oh
in
yeah,
my senior year, so I just can't get
stings.
past that. I
Okay.
still have some bitterness about that.
Fair enough.
Take one, keep one, steal one. On Big Time, the podcast.
Gonna get to another segment that we got going here on season 4 as well. It's called
Okay.
Take One, Keep One, and Steal One.
Oh
So
God.
here we go. So basically, we're gonna look back on your athletic career. Looking back and knowing what you know now, what's one thing you would take with you from today and bring it back to your playing career?
I guess the ability to just kind of enjoy the moment a little more than I did at the time.
Okay. It goes
You
by
know,
fast, right?
it goes by fast. I think you put so much pressure on yourself, and you take it so seriously, which is great. But I think learning what lessons you're really trying to figure out through athletics.
Okay. That's a good answer. I like that.
Thanks.
All right, so that's the one you're going to take with you. What's one thing you would keep? One thing you wouldn't change that you did, maybe the way you prepared, or just something that you did during your playing career that just aged really well and you would still maybe pass off to someone else?
One or two.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Well, one personal, and then one, I guess, that I can share. So the thing that I would feel good about, and I would continue to give some advice on, is you get what you put in by far.
Okay, that's a good one too.
Um, and I also would never ever change my relationship with any of my teammates.
Okay. And then the last one is steal one. So, knowing what you know now and just all the teammates you've had, what's one thing you would take from one of your teammates and maybe use to maybe have helped you out a little bit more?
I could have used a jump shot. I'm trying to think of which one of my teammates had
Okay.
a jump shot. I'm thinking Jill Bourgette's jump shot would be the one thing I would take.
There we go. Where was she a team? Was she a high school teammate or a college
She
teammate?
was a college teammate.
Okay. Just a
She
really
was a
good
hell of a
jumper.
good, just a really good player. Yep, really good player, really good athlete.
So there you go. Take one, keep one, steal one. That's one of the new
I like
segments.
that.
Yeah, one of
I
the new
like it.
segments for season 4 here. So we're gonna kind of close the gap from college to where you are now. So what have you been doing in the meantime? We know,
Well,
I know where you're at now, but let's give
no.
it the condensed
Yeah,
summary of what's kind of
sure.
happened since then.
Yep. So I graduated from college in '95. Started teaching high school math that fall. Started coaching JV basketball, JV soccer. Did that for a few years. That was at Westbrook High School. Then I took over the Deering girls basketball program, varsity girls basketball, and went to teach there for 3 or 4 years, and had a wonderful experience doing that. Something I thought I'd do for a really long time, and then I got pregnant. Um, not that that's a bad thing, but that did not allow me to continue coaching at the time.
Right.
So I stopped coaching for a while, but still kept teaching math, selling a little real estate here or there. And so I'm still teaching math. Now I'm at Gorham High School, and I got back into coaching about 6 years ago when my good buddy Lon Berthium asked me to come and work with him. So I'm his assistant now, one of his assistants, and very happy to be there. So teaching and coaching.
And got a couple state championships to go along with it too.
Oh, yes, so much fun. Yep,
So
what a blast.
you guys are probably the premier women's high school program in the state right now.
Hey, well, we didn't win it this year, so
True.
somebody else has that title now. But we've had a really nice run with some really great players. Yeah, and we have a really good time together.
So, I mean, obviously, you've known Lon pretty much your whole life. You
Yeah.
guys came through high school pretty much at the same time, grew up playing against each other. What's it
Yeah.
like having to be his assistant? Are there any times you just want to be like, Lon, sit down, let me say my piece?
Well, it's funny because I did not have any desire to be anybody's assistant after being a head coach.
Yeah.
And when he first mentioned it to me, I thought, I don't know, Lon, if I can do that. I'm like, I'm very opinionated. I have my own style, blah, 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 blah. But you know what? We get along so well, and we're really similar, I think, with how we treat the kids. Um, I'm not afraid to tell him when I think he's making a mistake, and he sure as heck isn't afraid to tell me. But we respect each other, we listen to each other, and at the end of the day, he's the head coach, and what he says goes. And most of the time, I agree with what he says. So we have a really nice time. We have a great relationship, and I feel really lucky to be where I'm at.
You planning on doing it for a while? You loving it right now?
Yeah, I love it right now. I mean, my kids I have a senior, I have a freshman. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to do it as long as I can. I mean, my daughter's a part of the program right now, so as long as she doesn't mind having me around, and that's okay. I'd love to continue to do it. I mean, I find the Maine winters very long. Um, and at one point I wanted to really just coach basketball. So, I mean, my life took a little bit of a turn when I had a family and had to give it up. And I kind of feel like I'd like to be a little selfish right now and continue to coach if I can at all.
Especially if you guys are winning at a high level.
Yeah. And,
That doesn't
I
hurt.
like, what I love, Tom? I love teaching, but I love the relationship that I get from coaching the kids because it is entirely different. I think you're able to get at them at a different level than you do in the classroom, and I love being a part of that.
And you guys also have another Fort Kent native on the staff as
Oh,
well.
yes, we do. Aaron Millette. Aaron Millette is our JV coach and another one of our varsity assistants, and Aaron's great, and we have a really good time. Aaron and Lon have been together for a long time at Gorham. I think it's been 11 years, so I've only been there the last 6 years. I'm lucky they let me in.
Do you guys have any more room for any more Fort Kenters on the staff?
Maybe.
Or
There's always room for Fort Kenners on the staff.
how can I become part of the program? I kind of feel like I am part of the program, just with big time. I've had Lon on,
I think so.
I want another role within the program. You guys can get together and just figure out what my role can be, but I
All
wouldn't mind
right.
having a role, especially if you guys are winning state championships. I like
All
to
right.
attach myself to winners. So
Yeah, you got it. We're losing it. We've lost. We've had some really great players here the last few years. So that the reign of the big time players is has come to a close. So we're going to be rebuilding a little bit. So it'll be fun to see how our kids respond to that. But I'm
but
looking forward to it.
yeah, I was gonna say that must be one of the joys of coaching, though, is just like the rebuild
It's
and
awesome.
seeing how people.
Sometimes, yeah, and I think sometimes those years are where you feel like you have the biggest effect on the kids too.
Right.
And that's what I'm looking forward to.
And one of the cool things you guys have done is you guys have, I think the last 2 years, right, made the Northern
Yep.
Maine trip. So
Yep.
for those that may not know about it, why don't you just go ahead and tell us what you guys have been doing in the preseason here?
Yeah, I was a few years ago. We wanted to mix it up during the preseason, and we tried to get some games down in Braintree, Mass, because Braintree had a really good team with a couple of or a couple of sisters that went on to play at Villanova, and we really tried to get a game with them over the Christmas break or right at the beginning of the preseason, and our schedules just didn't align. So, Lon and I and Aaron kind of talked, and we're like, how about a county trip? So Caribou and Presque Isle have this tournament. So they invited us to come and play, and we brought our kids up thinking that they would not like the county. And honestly, that's the only thing they care about in the season is that we continue to do that every year. Our whole team came up. We got out of school on a Friday. We took our big yellow bus up to the county, and we played 4 games, and all the parents came up and had a wonderful time, and hopefully we do it for years to come because it's a really good experience for our kids.
And you guys have some other Valley connections with some of the players in the team too, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Mackenzie Holmes, dad is from Presque Isle. We have a couple of girls on our team are Fort Kent and Madawaska parents. Pierre Michaud's daughter and Pierre married Michelle Harvey, who's a Fort Kent girl. Their 2 girls are on our team, and my daughter's on the team. So we definitely have some county connections. Yeah,
Absolutely.
super fun.
And you guys got coverage from the legendary Rennie Kluge.
I mean, that was special. That was special. I'm not going to lie to you. Rainey's he's a pretty renowned sportscaster in our opinion. I mean, he's been around the block a few times, so we had a wonderful time with our interview with him a couple years ago.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
Rennie's on my dream list of guys to get on the podcast at some point.
You talk about a guy with a memory. I mean, he remembers everything.
Yeah, legendary.
Totally. Legendary.
If you're looking for the hard-hitting journalistic questions, you're in the wrong place. It's Ethan Asks Big Time Questions on Big Time, the podcast.
All right, gonna get to our first segment here. Ethan asks big time questions on Big Time, the podcast. Ethan, what is your first question today?
On another edition of Ethan Asks Big Time Questions. So, Neile, actually, I've been wondering something for a while. If my memory serves me right, you were one of my T-ball coaches for the Purple Grapes, which, in my opinion, could go down as the most dominant T-ball team in Fort Kent history. So, I'm wondering if that early coaching success is what has propelled you to have a successful coaching career, and ultimately, is that Purple Grapes team responsible for putting you on a path to coaching?
Great question.
I mean, that's a great question, Ethan. I think the answer is without question. Is every possible ounce of success that I have in the coaching ranks attributed to my experience with the Purple Grapes? I mean, if I remember correctly, were we a championship caliber team? I think we were.
Who came up with the name Purple Grapes? Did you come up with the name Purple Grapes?
I'm pretty sure I'm going to put that on Ethan.
Ethan came up. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. All right,
awesome.
Ethan, with another question. Ethan, what's your second question?
Yes. I mean, it was even better because I think I was a few years before you, and there was even less parental supervision then. And you kind of could do whatever you wanted all summer long. I just think we had the freedom that and the lack of parental supervision, and it was wonderful.
Were you the type were you hanging out by the bridge? Were you doing that type of stuff too, or were you was
Yeah, no,
that
I
a thing
mean,
back then?
yeah, well, actually, a thing back then was to jump off the bridge. I mean, we used to
Yeah.
jump off the bridge trestle into the river. And I remember, God, I remember going down the river near the falls in inner tube
Oh
tire, the big inner
yes.
tube tires, and we didn't wear life jackets. I mean, I remember those things. But yeah, the wreck scene was huge. Just so much fun, so much fun. The slush puppy and Bazooka Joes, that brings back a lot of good memories.
Absolutely. Ethan bringing the fire with these questions today. And he's got one
You know,
more.
all right.
Ethan, what's the last question?
What was it like being associated at a young age with Lucas Levesque? Was it was it one of those situations where it's like, we don't have the same last name, we can't be related? I don't know that kid. what, uh, what was it like having him around?
Oh, Lucas is a very sweet boy, and I think you guys give him a bad rap. Lucas was great to grow up with, but God, I mean, he got into some trouble, and oh, that little bugger. But he was fun. When I left town, he was only coming into high school, so he's quite a bit younger than I am. I mean, he wasn't in high school when I was, so I probably don't even know the half of it. I'm guessing when I went away to college is when he really came into his own. Uh,
We'll have to save those stories for another day. We'll have to dig
yeah,
to the bottom of that.
exactly.
We'll
Yeah.
do an investigative episode of Big Time here at some point and
I don't know.
find out all that.
From the land of Donair and Poutine, it's time to sort fact from fiction. Live on location, it's Charlito Wonders. On Big Time, the podcast.
All right, gonna get to our one of our last segments here for the episode. Charlito Wonders, Big Bro Charles, with his journalistic take on Big
My
Time.
buddy.
Let's see what he's got.
What's up, Neile? It's Charlito out here in Halifax. Just wanted to say thanks for dropping in the podcast. Congratulations on a stellar career, and that coaching staff you got down in Gorham is top level. I'm just wondering, once upon a time I talked to Lucas Levesque. He told me you guys were related. Still trying to figure it out because you look about 10 years younger than the guy. So is it true that you actually taught him how to shoot the three ball? If I remember correctly, you had a lethal three-point shot, and he claims that you taught him how to hit that three-pointer. And also, if you taught him to shoot the three-pointer, why didn't you teach a guy to play defense too? The guy's always cherry-picking, lazy as ever, getting back on defense. So, all right, congratulations on everything. Thanks for dropping in the podcast. Have a great day.
All right, Charles.
Thanks, Charlito. That's a great question. I mean, I would like to take credits for Lucas's 3-point prowess, but definitely I was not his defensive coach. Oh boy, you know what Lucas and I spent a lot of time doing it on the yard outside on Page Avenue, the road right where my house was. We would set up a pitching mound for him, and I would catch for him day after day after day. So, I would take credit for his curveball. That's for sure.
Well, yeah, we'll take that. I mean, I
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
wouldn't take credit for his defense.
No, nope.
I hope everyone had a good time. Because things are going to get serious for a moment. It's time to talk death on Big Time, the podcast.
So we're gonna get to a part of the podcast here where things get a little bit serious with this segment. It's called "When You Die,
Okay.
What Jersey
Okay.
Do You Want to Be Buried With?" So you have a bunch of great jerseys that probably mean a lot to you. Which
Yeah.
jersey means the most?
My St. Joe's basketball jersey.
Why so much that one, not the other ones?
I just feel like that played such a role in molding me into the person that I am now. That whole experience of basketball at that level with that team and that coach, and the relationship that I still have with the coach and the team. And yeah, I think I want to be buried in number 22, St. Joseph's College Monks.
Would you say that time playing college basketball at St. Joe's, did more for you as a person than Potato Harvest in during your time in high school? Which one?
Not even close. Potato harvest. Potato harvest is what gave me a work ethic. There's
Okay.
no question about that. And it made me grateful to be teaching.
Yeah, exactly right. You get to be inside where it's warm and
Hey, I can't tell you how many times I've threatened my own children when I find them lazy that I'm going to take them out of school for 2 weeks. I don't care what it does to their grades, and I'm going to send them up and make them pick potatoes for a couple of weeks and see how they like it.
that'll change anyone's behavior right there.
It absolutely will.
That would actually be a great training camp if you just had your kids like pick potatoes in the morning and then like have practice in
True.
the afternoon. Like
Yes, absolutely.
that'd be quite the training camp right there.
Yep, for sure.
All right, so before we get up out of here, is there anything that you want to clear the air on? Anything you want to say? Any stories you want to break? We love to break breaking news on Big Time. Is there anything you want to
God.
say before we get up out of here?
I don't think so. I feel very grateful to the community, and even going back now and seeing the people that I've known for 40, 45 years here from Fort Kent. And just the fact that, I don't know you that well, but I know your parents well, and I know your grandparents well. So I feel like I know you because of that. I would not trade growing up in Fort Kent for anything.
That's the thing. It's such a family atmosphere
Yeah.
where you may not know someone, but you know someone who they know, and because of that, you kind of know who they are, and you don't really get that
Yeah.
anywhere else.
No, you really don't. And, no matter what, and I think this is why, Lon and Aaron and I have such a good relationship coaching, is I honestly feel like, and in Gorham, there's so many people that live here from Fort Kent or from the county, and I feel like they're the people that I migrate to because I always feel like they have my back and I have theirs. So there is a certain level of trust and an expectation of, I guess, honesty and integrity when you meet those people that you know that that's really what they're about. So I guess that's what I would leave it with.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, Neile Joler Nelson on Big Time, the podcast. This has been big. This has been what we've been circling for a while. So we want to definitely thank Neile for coming on.
Thank
An
you, Tom.
absolute legend, an absolute icon when it comes to Fort Kent athletics. So thank you once again for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you're going back and checking out all the previous episodes on YouTube, on iTunes, on Spotify. Make sure you're checking us out on social media, Instagram, Facebook. We're all over there. And also go rate us on the iTunes store. Give me that 5-star rating. Give Big Time a 5-star rating. That's going to be it for this week's episode. Make sure you tune in next week for another big episode.